Welcome back, everyone.
What's up?
So here we go with our worst movies of the year. I think you guys know the drill at this point. Although, unlike shoehorning it in at the end, we're going to actually quickly show you a list of the movies we didn't see this year.
Yeah, even though even though there are a lot of bad movies we did not see, there are still plenty of bad movies that we did see. Or bad in our sense being directly bad for us in experience and
in
what
our
we
opinions.
in our opinion, and what we thought was bad cinema. There are disagreements, there are agreements, but then again, that's why we have the art of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have something on here that you might have liked, whoop-de-fucking do for you. Yeah.
Well, seriously, enjoy it. Don't let us get in the way of it.
But we can still hate anything we want as much as we want.
Yep.
That's the reason why we're humans.
We're speaking for ourselves and only ourselves.
So, yeah, we said in the last video, the best movies make us look forward to future consistencies in the upcoming year. This is the shit we want to dump down the drain and finally get rid of and on with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
These are the worst experiences, movies, and just overall things. No, not things. Just movies from 2017.
Come join the murder. Come fly with black. We'll give you freedom from the human trap. Come join the murder. Soar on my wings.
And I'll be starting us off, and my number 5 choice for me is Daddy's Home 2, also known as A Daddy's Home Christmas, because like another movie that's going to be popping up later on my list, this is just a goddamn Christmas cash-in off of a series, well, a supposed series from a marginally successful daddy comedy about an premise and just being really, really good at being mediocre. Along with, not really wasting, but spending the talents of Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. Yes, I did say that they do have talent. And for some reason, they actually do get to show it in this movie. The reason I have this on my list is because it's strangely stupid. The premise of it being that Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell are buddies now, mostly because they're stepdads to each other's kids, as well as being a whole mix of stepdad, dad, bro, stepdad. It's really confusing the way they try and put it in the dialogue. Regardless, both of their dads are coming to see them for Christmas, with Mel Gibson being Mark Wahlberg's dad and John Lithgow being Will Ferrell's dad. And if you thought that premise sounded tired right away, the trailer did not help at all with selling this as more than what you'd expect it to be. It's a screwball, like, trying to be awkward comedy. And again, to its credit, the lead four I didn't think were actually that bad. And the casting is perfect with Mel Gibson and how batshit insane we all found out he was, being partnered up with the macho Mark Wahlberg, who tries to not show him his emotions at all because he's a tough guy. And John Lithgow's variable of emotions, and him also being a contemporary funny man from television with Third Rock from the Sun. Have you ever seen that show?
Mm-mm.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
And it's in the perfect realms of, like, silliness. Suburban silliness is what it is. Have you ever heard the premise?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you about it later. But John Lithgow, he's a funny guy. And he actually can match the bubbliness of Will Ferrell, who is he sort of phones it in, but then again, he's innocent enough. He's sort of the butt of everyone's joke, but it's funny to make fun of him because he's Will Ferrell and he's likable. And yeah, him, Wahlberg, and even Gibson and Lithgow are still likable, and Gibson is having the time of his life in this movie, but that's all the farther it goes for good. literally everything else surrounding them is so stupid. The combined kids with like with Wahlberg and Farrell are really, really annoying, and their acting is not very good, particularly the like token son of the group, and he's going through girl issues, trying to figure out, oh, does he like this girl? He should talk to her. And oh my god, I'll get to a bit like that in a moment. But yeah, the wives of Farrell and Wahlberg, completely drawn over, and they could have had something where Farrell's wife opens up a bit more and tries to be a little bit more free, but they don't do anything with it. And also, the story is like point for point going all over the place. First they start off at home, then they're getting the parents, then they're going off to some log cabin or something, and then supposedly they're on the way back, and yeah, it jumps a lot of places, and the pacing of it is not very good. It has one thing happening, and then the next you're off to a different character with a different motivation and a completely different purpose. And, oh yeah, John Cena's in this movie. I was actually looking forward to that because I'm a huge wrestling fan, but I'm also a hugely conflicted fan of John Cena. He is a likable personality, and he's actually not a bad actor. He's the funniest part of Trainwreck for us, and he was actually funny in that. And I'm surprised at how good Ferdinand reviews are getting, but yeah, he's barely in this. He's only in it for like 20 to 25 minutes. We need more minutes of John Cena, goddammit. Yeah, too many memes about that. But yeah, he's hardly in this, and that disappointed me a bit. And he only comes in for the ending sequence, and okay, everything up to this ending sequence is just standard dumb. It's standard run-of-the-mill, like, have some slapstick happen, have some like not too big of confrontations happen, and then they're at the climax. They're stuck in this like either bus station or some form of transportation station. I was telling this movie beforehand, okay, this is standard but kind of boring. Just go lowbrow. And as soon as that happened, a plot point about the boy having the hots for one of his sisters is revealed in a completely like crazy out of nowhere swerve. But then later on after that, the sister that he kissed is holding him while he gets kisses from other girls. What? And then one of the treatments for one of the characters, basically it's just trying to solve one of their flaws. And yeah, did I mention the writing is very thin? Yeah, Wahlberg just says, I love you, man, I love you, man, I love you, man, and supposedly that fixes everything. And then they get to a music number, which they telegraph into your mind in the beginning. And, yeah, so this was strangely stupid. And, like, strangely paced, acted, and even strangely directed, because some of the time they don't know if they want to go for a montage feel of like highlight reels of jokes, or that if they actually want to develop some form of character. So yeah, at this point I had contemplated whether to put it on here because it wasn't wholly terrible, but it was still pretty stupid. And again, I only want to call it a Daddy's Home Christmas because I love Christmas, but I hate how much of a commercial tie-in Christmas can be. Holy.
Alright, well said. My number 5 is also a movie I didn't think was very funny. It's The Disaster Artist. And now, I didn't see that many bad movies this year, okay?
You'll preface that.
Yes. So my number 5 was always going to be something that's not that bad. Or at least something I have a lot more sympathy for compared to all the other movies on my list. And I understand, I really do, completely, why people love this movie. Why you like it, why all the fans of the room love it. But that being said, this was one of the most unpleasant experiences for me this year.
We have our Siskel and Ebert moment. Just me having a ball and you just not wanting any of it.
Right. I discovered a whole new source of cringe for myself. There could be some charm in seeing actors who have no idea how awful their performance is, are like just completely blissfully unaware of it, but it doesn't achieve the same effect when you have decent actors trying to replicate that same bad performance. It doesn't work, and it was so painful to watch. I was just squirming in my seat watching it unfold. I mean, the obvious argument to that is, well, they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, they're making a bad movie. That's the story of The Room. Well, yeah, but I still don't think it's that enjoyable. I mean, I guess you could say Tommy Wiseau, whether he's playing himself or Johnny in The Room, is just not that endearing of a character to me. So, and even besides like my own personal feelings, I think there are some really bad design choices they went with. Particularly how most of the characters are played by very recognizable actors, which might be okay if they just chose to exist in a fictional bubble of Hollywood, separate from the real thing. Where,
to be fair, I think the only person who was said to be just themselves is Bryan Cranston.
Correct. But the moment he shows up is the moment all the immersion is completely shattered. And now all I'm thinking is, well, okay, are we going to comment on the fact that our script supervisor looks a lot like Seth Rogen? Or isn't that the kid from The Hunger Games? Or why is James Franco in a greasy wig and talking like a jackass? In terms of like if you really want to get into this movie in terms of like retelling of a true story, that hurts the immersion like tremendously. And I really don't think they should have done it. And also, let's not forget that this movie came out too many years too late. The internet basically stole this movie's thunder before it was even conceptualized. Reviews, parodies, compilations, commentaries, a fucking soundboard, remixes. I could say...
Oh, hi! Oh, hi! I love you, Lisa. Oh, hi! You're tearing me apart! Sort of like that.
I could fucking recite this movie line for line. And that was before actually seeing the goddamn movie. So, again, you can't engage me by saying, "You're tearing me apart, Lisa," for the millionth fucking time and expect me to laugh at it. Okay, I've heard it too many times, and that hurt my enjoyment of this movie a lot. But like I said, if you like this movie, that's just fine. I really don't understand why people do, or I do understand why people like this movie. It's just not for me, okay? It's a slightly controversial pick, but get used to that, because I got more on the way.
I can sense more on the way also, and I respectfully disagree.
That's fine.
So, a great time. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. You suck donkey balls. No, he doesn't. He sucks elephant balls. Okay, and now for my number 4, I'm turning the tables a little bit because my number 4 pick is Table 19. Now, some of you probably either don't remember this movie or haven't even heard of it. It came out in, I think, either February or March of last year. Well, not this past year. And there's a good reason why a lot of people, including you, never heard about it. It's so stupid. So, the premise is that it tries to go for some form of breakfast club where these unlikely individuals who are situated in this one circumstance bond and form friendships and overcome their hardships together. But it's really hard to do it when you're at a wedding and you're also supposedly all the outcasts. It takes place with Anna Kendrick being the former wedding planner of her best friend's wedding and being the maid of honor, but for some reason she broke up with her boyfriend, who's one of the groomsmen, and also the brother of the bride. With that said, she's kicked down to Table 19, the outcasts table, where there exists distant, longtime family friends, a distant nanny, as well as some other form of connection. The connections are sort of vague, even though that's kind of the point that they're trying to make. But other than that, it has absolutely nothing going for it. the reason it has nothing going for it is because the script is terrible. They are trying to make this, they're trying to make this flimsy premise pass off as something serious when really everything that happens, all the events that are told to you are being told in the wrong way. Almost everything about this is wrong. The acting is wrong because the characters are not like fully defined. They're only molds of better characters, like the awkward teenager who doesn't know how to talk to girls and goes up to people literally talking like an alien. Another supposed alien is played by Stephen Merchant. He was in Logan. He plays this unbelievably awkward person who he's been to prison, but you can pick up on that as soon as you talk to him because he's so goddamn awkward. The dialogue they have for the people in this is terrible, and one of the terrible lines being, "Oh, why'd you want us to come out here? I came out here to have an affair." That comes from the Table 19's like couple, like the people who have been married for years, but they're trying to fix their marriage. Like, oh my god. And, oh, big shock, the nanny is cool and has weed in her room because, like, there's nothing. These characters are so flimsy, and all the decisions that take place later in the movie, they don't even coincide with anything that's happening. You think that Anna Kendrick is gonna hook up with a guy who shows up at the wedding reception and is, well, a supposed wedding crasher. That offers for possibilities of her, like, loosening up her life or not trying to be what everyone expects her. But nope, it turns out he's a groom from another wedding that's happening in the same goddamn building. Yeah, that's the direction they go with it. And yeah, it's supposed to be like an insult to, oh my god, men are pigs. But no, that's the real message of that is men are stupid. And the only reason they have that set up is so they can steal their wedding cake out of what's supposed to be like some big moment. This doesn't know what events to make important. Screw it, it's a stupid movie, I'm gonna spoil it for all of you. Anna Kendrick is pregnant with her ex-boyfriend's baby. She was broken up with because of that, and supposedly she thinks that her boyfriend's not responsible enough, but one fact from way long ago that the nanny knows that, oh, he threw away his old stuffed animal I gave him. No. And the bride says, no, I lost mine and he gave me his. Oh my god, he's the nicest guy ever now. It doesn't matter if he can't plan anything or make any commitments. He's nice. And she is almost as bad. I know Anna Kendrick is an attractive woman. But is she really like one of the most gorgeous people ever? And hopefully the Pitch Perfect series tanks her career because she's just making money now. But Anna Kendrick, she's a good actress. She's a good comedic actress. At points, she's okay in this, but why is she choosing these scripts that don't make sense? With the whole stuffed animal thing, she accepts him for who he is, and he makes some move and swims back to shore because they're at like some beachside place. And the wrong ending. The most wrong ending you can think of for this series of events. They get back together because of the baby. Whoop-de-fucking-do for you. You two are gonna be away from me. You two are gonna be separated in about 3 years because babies never save relationships. I'm sorry if that's true for well, people in his family, but they've actually proved that wrong. But statistically, that never ever works. And they think it's gonna work because they put a happy score underneath it. They think it's being a nice it's a nice movie. Everyone ends up happily ever after. It's a nice movie. It's nice. And I think you've heard my bitchiness about that sort of subject of movies, particularly chick flicks like that in the past, but oh my god. And I saw this with my mother and my grandmother. They obviously liked it because it's a nice movie, but nothing about it makes any form of sense. The characters are unlikable and most of the time idiots, and the dialogue, well, I might have even said about say everything twice, say everything twice. The dialogue is awful, the direction is nonsensical, it's just dumb and bad.
Okay, well, going off of the dumb and bad, my number 4 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Best Spider-Man movie to date, my fat ass.
Or whatever perspective asks.
Right. Look, I wasn't looking forward to this movie, especially not after the terrible introduction we got in Civil War, which could have been rated NC-17 for the amount of dick-sucking going on between Peter Parker to Tony Stark. Most of his dialogue in that movie was basically, "Okay, Mr. Stark, sure thing, Mr. Stark, I love you, Mr. Stark. Man, isn't Mr. Stark the greatest person ever? I want to make love to his helmet." And Homecoming is basically my worst fears come to light. It's Spider-Man reduced to Tony Stark's little bitch sidekick. When he's not drinking the Kool-Aid right from his dick, he's complaining about how he can never be a real superhero, which admittedly is something worth complaining about, but this movie gives me so much contempt for this little shit that I agree with that notion. He shouldn't be a real superhero, but I'm not happy about that. Look, one of the things about this movie is that one of the things about Spider-Man is that he's a wimpy loser boy kid by day, and then a badass one-liner slinging superhero by night. You know, that for me is one of the coolest things about Spider-Man. But it seems like the Sam Raimi films were the only ones that really got that right. You know, and that's not to say Tom Holland couldn't be a really good Spider-Man or Peter Parker, but it all comes down to the writing. And he's not written as Spider-Man in this movie. He's written as Tony Stark's little bitch sidekick. Or rather, he's a stupid kid written by stupid adults that completely misinterpret the character. Now, alright, let me get one thing out of the way. Michael Keaton as Vulture is not bad. In fact, arguably, he's one of the best villains we've seen in Marvel movies so far. I mean, Vulture's not really a villain I found particularly memorable in the Spider-Man universe, but, you know, he brings him to life pretty well in this movie, and he's at least somewhat intimidating, which I think most Marvel villains lack. The problem is that we just don't have a good hero to... we just don't have a good hero to give any kind of real weight to the opposition here. I think that's my biggest complaint. What was your thoughts on this?
Well, I was disappointed. I didn't think that it was as bad as you were putting it. But yeah, Michael Keaton was great in it. I loved his backstory. But that was sort of the downside of it. For me, they didn't make Spider-Man interesting enough, so I sympathized more with the villain. But other than that, I did find this disappointing because of the little details of Spider-Man is not his own characters. Tony Stark still can't stop poking his nose into all of Marvel's material, and I don't know I hope it's not Robert Downey Jr. at the creative helm saying I need to be in more of these projects. But yeah, I also didn't like the fact that his suit has artificial intelligence, and
it's a skin-tight Iron Man suit,
pretty much.
And yes, Tony Stark built it for him because God forbid he do a fucking thing on his own.
Yeah, although one of the good elements that sort of saved this movie for me was the final action scene, because yeah, there isn't as much flying around, web slinging, yada yada, but it is a really cool idea just having Spider-Man be out of his element without his suit, but only his web canisters and his actual fighting skills, and proving away with his wits and his intelligence as well as his strengths and characteristics. I hated the idea that he had to be told what to do from his suit.
Right.
And, even though granted Iron Man is Iron Man and Tony Stark is smart, but it was just a secondary person for Tony to talk to when he created Jarvis.
Right.
And it was also created from a different medium. Jarvis was the main voice in his house. So yeah, essentially it is his electronic sidekick. Spider-Man, at least from my understanding of previous film, of previous comics, he never ever needed that secondary help. But other than that, it looked nice, and at some points it actually, the action scenes did get me invested a bit. But everything else aside from that, just like daily scenes, him walking around, I didn't like him enough as Peter Parker.
Yeah. I suppose, yes, he's supposed to be a loser as Peter Parker. That part is true. But once he becomes Spider-Man, he's supposed to be a badass, at least somewhat. Supposed to have an attitude of at least no fucking around, not filming a Vine in the middle of a fight.
But luckily Vine is dead. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, it's so infuriating having to watch your favorite hero be reduced to such lows. I mean, Spider-Man shits himself in the movie, and Tony Stark has to come flying in with a wipe and a pair of clean pants, and he'd be like, "Stop it! Stop it! I'm a real superhero, guys!" Of course you are, you little shit. That's a perfect summary of this movie. It's very similar to my feelings on Dawn of Justice from last year, like what they did with Batman and Superman, just completely misrepresenting the fundamentals of those characters and what I liked about them so much. Mm-hmm. Except if we're being honest here, it would have to be more like if Superman came to Earth and he couldn't do a fucking thing until Batman shows up and builds him a suit that allows him to fly, and he'd be like, "Oh, thank you, Batman, thank you, thank you." Fuck this movie. And just as a reminder, this was the last straw for me. I am done with Marvel movies.
I'm trying to convince him to see the next Avengers only for the possibility of seeing Tony Stark die before our eyes.
I need to be confirmed. That needs to be confirmed for me.
Why confirm it when you can be surprised and say, "Yes, hallelujah, thank God, the burden is over"?
Because then I'd be giving money to something I hate.
I'd be paying for it.
Whatever. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe. I'm just gonna say maybe.
So you're saying no to free money?
I don't know. But, people ask me, "Oh, how was Thor Ragnarok? What do you think of it?" It's like, I don't know. I didn't see it. I don't care. I feel happy because of it.
You wouldn't have liked Ragnarok.
I probably wouldn't have. Funny thing, that was the first time people have actually started to complain about how these movies are so overstuffed with comedy and they're kind of stupid. And I certainly don't dismiss that kind of criticism. I have to wonder, how does that separate from all the other fucking Marvel movies?
Watch Mojo put this in their top 10 best movies of the year list.
Of course they did.
I'm starting to get sick of Watch Mojo. The only reason I go to them is for pop punk retrospectives.
They're not the only ones. I mean, Angry Joe said this was one of his favorite movies of the year, too.
Homecoming or Ragnarok?
I think both.
Oh, God.
Marvel anything really is just so immaculate. Like, it is untouchable, which is why I piss so many people off when I say that I don't like them. But you may not realize it, but it really is just out of a feeling of love. Like, I miss when comic book movies were something special.
Yes, but now because of the success of Avengers and the Marvel franchise, we have 3 to 4 comic book movies every single year. I'm sick of it.
They're all cut from the same cloth. It's like, one of the nice things about comic book movies of the old days is that they all came from different directors. I mean, granted, they were also different source materials too, but still, each one had their own unique flavor. Each one had their own unique take. There was room for creativity and room for you to actually, find something different. The V for Vendetta is not like The Dark Knight, which is not like Hellboy 2, which is not like Spider-Man 2, and so on and so on. But now it's like all these fucking Marvel movies just blend together for me. all the stuff I'm complaining about with Spider-Man Homecoming is just exclusive to this movie. That's without even going into all the things that plague Marvel movies. It's overstuffed with comedy. It's completely inconsequential story because it's got to leave itself open for fucking sequels and crossovers.
And it's something we could talk about for 3 hours or even more.
Yeah, so I'll just leave it with that.
We can only hope for the future that something will come around that we... Well, something that he can like. I still have the capacity to like some Marvel movies. Moving on. My number 3 choice for this year is A Bad Mom's Christmas. And if you think that I'm sexist for putting a women-centered Christmas movie above A Daddy's Home Christmas, fuck you, this one's worst. Mostly because I didn't even think the first one's premise, just bad moms, was that interesting. So, and some may think, oh, you were talking about simple premises paying off. That's a simple premise that seems lazy. Just have a lead character or a couple of them be stressed out and then just say, hey, let's do something. Okay, do. Shit happens. Apparently, there were a handful of people that liked the first Bad Moms, and we actually talked about the trailer that we saw for it, I think before... I don't even remember the movie that we saw before, but even we said that looks really lazy, but since I like torturing myself, well, that and also I wanted to try and seek out more bad movies, but oh my god, this one was pushing it. It centers around the 3 moms from the first one: Mila Kunis, Kristen Bell, and god damn it, I can't think of the third woman. Give me a second. Damn. I think she's been in a bunch of other like bit role stuff. Her name will come to me later, but they're exactly like Daddy's Home, although that Daddy's Home came out after this one, but this one somehow manages to do it worse. All 3 of their moms all come to visit them. God damn it, I'm still trying to think of the name of the third woman, but yeah, the 3 moms consist of Christine Baranski is Mila Kunis' mom, Cheryl Hines is Kristen Bell's mom, and Susan Sarandon is Catherine Hahn's mom. That's her name. And yes, luckily I remembered it. And the only reason I can assume that Susan Sarandon is her mom is because they're both busty. They got nice tits, and they only make jokes about that once. But, oh my god, if you think that that's... the jokes that they have in this are terrible. And when I say jokes, I mean from... like stupid and predictable to almost non-existent humor, or completely missing the point of humor. The whole basis is that, oh, the mom's coming to visit the moms? Oh my god, what will ensue? Basically everything you think that will happen does happen. Frickin' Christine Baranski is a control freak on Mila Kunis and tries to take charge of every single event they have at Christmas, which just makes her more unlikable than she already is and doesn't give you a chance to, like... Well, the understanding for her behavior is incredibly flimsy. We'll get to that in a second. Cheryl Hines is the clingy mom whose only friend in the world is her daughter and is so awkward and barrier pushing that some intended jokes seem to be funny right away, but they stay for so long on it that it becomes really awkward and painful. As well as some actually creepy moments also, as well as like creepy arguments also. Cheryl Hines is the main perpetrator of this because she makes some of the strangest and out of nowhere decisions that you just don't want to be around her, period, and you don't even want to see if she can correct what she's done. And Susan Sarandon, she's just the hippie stoner. Oh yeah, you think they try and emphasize stoner in like early stoner comedies? Almost every time you see Susan Sarandon, she lights up a joint in public places. Nobody's doing a thing about it. realism, my ass. And, and there's also some stupid message that the bad moms are trying to enforce. And that's it. This is the tagline for the movie. Moms, we're taking back Christmas. Taking it back how? The only thing they do that's bad mom-esque is, oh my god, we're getting the information that our parents are coming home. Let's get wasted at a mall. Drink, 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 montage, 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 montage. Oh, let's dance sexy around Santa and take his hat. Whoop-de-doo. And that's also on the poster, as well as mostly exhibited in the trailer. And they don't do anything else bad moms-esque, I guess, which is what I'm assuming the first film had the intentions of doing anyway. Just like, oh, we're gonna do bad stuff, we're gonna do things our own way. What? The only other time that they try and do that in this movie is when Mila Kunis just says, she just said, oh, we're not going to go to the 3-hour long dark version of Nutcracker because Mila Kunis' mom is possibly more psycho than Cheryl Hines. She is, unbearable. I have no idea why husband Peter Gallagher even, can stand her, because she's the white class... white class... I don't know what I was saying. White collar, controlling, and everything needs to be perfect. And Mila Kunis thinks that she's done something bad when she turns down the free party that she's thrown for her and, somewhat destroys the house. But, yeah, Baranski is taking over Kunis' space, but Kunis feels bad when she, shows her up or whatever, mainly because Baranski's just, oh, I feel sad, I'm gonna go to church now. What? And then Cheryl Hines is, feeling bad. No. Yeah, she feels sad because Kristen Bell lashed out at her at some therapist or something, and Belle is just like, so all the women have been wronged for the right reasons, but they feel wrong about it. For the wrong reasons. If you can follow that logic, you can probably follow why this movie is so terribly written. Ugh. And again, it's so predictable when everything is gonna happen. You can predict when this is gonna happen. Oh yeah, and Catherine Hahn, she's the only mom that's not hooked up with anybody because she's supposed to be the hot, slutty one who has wisecracks every now and again. Oh, and did I mention that she works as a bikini waxer? Because she deals with genitals all the time. Oh yeah, by the way, she tries to hook up with a sexy Santa with a gigantic penis. I am not even kidding. I told him about this before we saw The Disaster Artist. The only joke is that she's obsessed with sex and hot guys. This hot guy schedules a bikini wax from her, and apparently his dick is bigger than this portion of my arm and fatter. And they emphasize it. They zoom in on his dick when he's okay, so sexy Santa, he's like a stripper for a living. Oh my god, he's a hot guy who is okay with flirting his junk. Yeah, so are most guys if you know them well enough. But that's the only joke, is that, oh my god, this guy is perfect. He likes sex as much as me, and he has a giant dick. Oh, he's dreamy. Oh, and they try and fake you out thinking that the one chance that she had at love is gone because of her mom. Oh yeah, that's the only other problem, is that, oh yeah, she's a runaway, she asks for money, she leaves. Whoop-de-fucking-do, you moron! That's probably what happened the other times. Oh yeah, she says that it has happened other times before this one. And I hope this didn't make as much money as Bad Moms did. Well, the first Bad Moms. And why are they trying to make the term Bad Moms happen? This was so stupid. But I like Mila Kunis. She's very talented and she's actually funny. She's been able to show that in movies like Friends with Benefits and the first Ted movie. she's actually funny because she's one of the only funny voices on Family Guy, at least nowadays. And I guess Kristen Bell still has like a form of talent, and I even wanted to like Catherine Hahn in this, but the characters are so one-dimensionally written, and so many of the decisions and choices do not make any form of sense in reality. But it's nice because it's Christmas, and even though they thought they took back Christmas, they really just agreed to make Christmas tolerable. And really, isn't that what Christmas is all about? Fuck this movie.
Yep. All right.
This is just gonna keep you away from more chick flicks, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, we need to keep away from chick flicks, but romantic comedies. No, more of those need to be made.
No, they don't. I could do without those.
Good romantic comedies.
I've yet to. Well, maybe I've seen a few good ones.
Yeah, I should have shown you a few of them by now.
Okay. Well, let's just say they're not as common. Anyways, so my number 3 is shit.
Your number 3 is shit.
So my number 3 is Boss Baby. I know for a fact this was not the worst animated movie of the year. It's not even the worst thing DreamWorks has ever made. But for me, it was the worst animated movie I saw this year, and it is a perfect summary of everything I hate about DreamWorks. Animated movies as of late have lost all their ambition. They come out with this attitude of, fuck it, it's for kids. And unfortunately, DreamWorks is one of the biggest offenders of that. Which is a shame because I know they're capable of making good movies, but they feel more like flukes when they release crap like this so willfully and proudly. This is a movie that sells itself on nothing more than its silly premise designed to get kids to see it, and has no further ambitions outside of that.
Merchandising!
Pretty much. God, this... I mean, the main joke of this movie begins and ends in the title. He's a boss. And also a baby. I mean, it's not that enticing in and of itself, and even without my own personal unsettlement from hearing an adult voice coming out of a baby.
Particularly Alec Baldwin, who is one of the most hot-headed celebrities in Hollywood still.
Right. The plot is more of this, like, it's just a bunch of nonsense in a world that can't justify its own existence. It does a piss-poor job of differentiating the difference between overactive child imagination and reality. And that's especially hard to follow when in this movie you have backyard car chases complete with explosions, pet conventions where they literally hang pets from the ceiling as displays, or have pools of puppies for kids to jump in and kill, and a mad scientist that discovers the secret of immortality to create a dog that cannot die in a weak attempt to destroy humanity. That may all sound like crazy fun, or at least fun in and of itself of how silly it is, but when you watch it, it's so dull and lifeless because it has no purpose behind it. It is the usual kid movie fodder. Silly, colorful, wacky, fast-paced. It doesn't mean anything. It makes me feel nothing. Nothing other than annoyance, really. The most fun I had in this movie was watching out for all the horrible implications they had that this movie was completely blissfully ignorant to. Just like Storks, we have babies literally off the rack, except here it's a little bit worse because you apparently get a 50-50 chance of going to a family like you should, or being forced to work in an office space to become an uncaring cog in the system who gets no love or attention. And oh man, I know it's not the worst, it's not the first of its kind, it's not the worst of its kind, but seeing this movie again it just pains me because the success and stream of movies like these are what turn good animated movies into the exception rather than the rule. and so that's Boss Baby.
I didn't like it either, but mostly surrounding the idea that it wasn't as I wanted it to be, like, as lowbrow or as satirical as possible. These are the same people who made Shrek and Shrek 2, which are some of the most, like, well, they do have sinister and satirical tones to the subject material that they have, which is just fantasy characters. If they went with a slightly more adult, like, form of tone to it, and maybe, I don't know, go for like a PG-13 rating, maybe they could have gotten something just out of the idea of Alec Baldwin is a baby who talks like an adult. But even with the PG rating, he doesn't talk like an adult. He still talks like a kid he still talks like a child who only has the ambitions and voice of an adult. And yeah, the jokes, they're just business puns. It's unbelievable how, like, predictable and unfunny the actual jokes and humor are. And on top of that, it's just predictable. When you have the setup of the one human brother has an impending baby brother coming in, and, oh, he's gonna ruin his perfect life, and, oh, this stipulation will be this happy result. They work through their problems and they realize their flaws in the end. Suck my ass. This was so goddamn... You could map it out from a mile away and you wouldn't be anywhere wrong at all. Except for, again, the insane parts of this where some of the events that happen are just too unbelievable for reality. So much so that this unabashedly tries to blend, like, fantasy with this supposed reality that they have made, mainly in the ending climax. But there's a lot of it that just does not make sense. It doesn't try to make sense, and it doesn't have any will to, simply because they want to sell more toys. I have hope in the future that DreamWorks will, like, get back on track with other projects, but after seeing this and Trolls, which I thought Trolls was still a lot worse than this, I still have to have hope that How to Train Your Dragon 3 will, like, set them on the right course.
Also, the economy of love, give me a fucking break.
Pretty much. And speaking of bad animated movies this year, yeah, there's no way in hell that you saw as bad of animated movies as I did.
I know.
Because my number 2 pick is Spark, A Space Tale. Get it? Tail, T-A-I-L? Because it's a goddamn monkey and you think that it's a fairy tale or something, but no.
Well, that's what that movie was called. I kept thinking it was called Spaced, or, like, Chimped.
It's because this movie is Lion King meets Space Chimps. That's all it is. And it takes from the story of the Lion King, and it has some of the cheapest animation since Space Chimps, since the Ratchet and Clank movie. And I gotta think of something else that's cheap, just cheap. This story is almost ridiculous.
Almost ridiculous?
No, it is full-fledged ridiculous. It is shit ridiculous.
Okay.
Because of... the planet that they're on is called Bana. Just throw an anana in there and, oh my god, it's a monkey pun. Ha fucking ah. They have 2 Oscar winners, a renowned theater actor, and Jessica Biel, she's famous. They're all... Why did they say yes to this script? Did anything about it actually pop? Did any of the dialogue have meaningful, like, meaning on the movie? No, because they just recite stuff and think that it's supposed to be big because it's just big phrases, but they don't build up any of their characters. Spark, he's a boring, also partially annoying motherfucker. Mostly because they don't give him any personality. They don't give him any purpose, and they do give him purpose, but that's all the dialogue is. The dialogue is the purpose of the movie. I've been here for 13 years. 13 years I've been on this rock. Once I was 13 years old, I was in 7th grade, and I listened to emo because people are emotional then.
Wait. Did they seriously do a parody of that song?
No! That was just off of a whim!
Oh, okay.
But like I said in the video, they say 13 years as many as that song says 7 years. Also, the villain in this movie is terrible. One of the best mostly the best part about like subpar animated movies that can't get their heroes right are at least memorable villains. In cases of like old 90s animated movies, there were a lot of movies that didn't have exciting protagonists, but even Disney movies can come from this sort of like production flaw. Sleeping Beauty is a perfect example. The lead protagonist, boring as shit. The villain is amazing and actually gets you invested. This villain is so forgettable. I think his name is Zong because they weren't creative enough to think of something else, so just make a sound with a verb. But a sound with a vowel, and then that's his name. Plus, here's another thing. They had Patrick Stewart in this movie, but instead of actually using him to his strengths, they only put him as like some commanding officer of armies that Spark has to control. You know what Patrick Stewart You know what else Patrick Stewart did in years past? He was in a couple of animated movies. One of them was Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. He was the villain in that, and he was actually entertaining. He was having fun with the material that they had. He could yuck it up. He had good comebacks with... Luckily, he had a good sidekick in Martin Short. But, yeah, think about this movie. Imagine if Patrick Stewart was the villain, was an evil monkey. That alone would actually be funny. But no, they stick with some random unknown actor who thinks that he's devilish and bad because he's trying to do a good Tim Curry impression. Oh, and that's all I could think of is just Tim Curry, like Tim Curry from the Mighty Ducks cartoon show back in the 90s on the Disney Afternoon. Because
actually, it sounds a lot like the food Nazi from Food Fight.
Well, even then he was sort of parodied as having Tim Curry's voice. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, they don't take advantage of anything. And the story, oh my god. Again, it's some orphan boy in a perfect kingdom who, due to some circumstances, is exiled for a number of years, taken over by his uncle, who kills his dad and beds his mother, which goes back to the Hamlet complex, and he has, after his long time in exile, he has to return to defeat his uncle and save the day, and take ownership of his kingdom. This is just Lion King. And it rips off Star Wars. I don't know if it rips off Star Wars, actually. No, yes, it does. Because there's a vision of his father with just the head of him. Yeah, it's like pretty much a mini version of the boss level from Star Fox 64, except this time the monkey head isn't trying to destroy him. But, no, he comes in a vision. Remember who you are. You are my... Wait, this is the wrong script. You are my son, and you will use this weapon to engage your abilities and defeat the whatever. Yeah, he's given like some dual form saber. It honestly, all the dual saber looks like is Pit's like bow and like his bow staff from Super Smash Brothers. It's not impressive, and you know what? None of the animation is impressive at all. It looks like a goddamn video game that came out like almost a decade ago. Here's a comparison example. Pixar, they take every single detail into their animation. When you look at Monsters Inc. or Monsters University, look at Sully really closely next time. They map out every single hair on his body, and they actually make it look like you could feel the fur on this monster / animal. The fox played by Jessica Biel. Oh wait, I think I just got that joke. Ha 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 ha. If you look at her tail just looks like a clay mold that someone put together in like stop motion animation, and it just looks. They look so real. No. Oh. And in the last video, I didn't get my box office figures correctly, even though I put it in the description of the video. This movie did make over $500,000. But it only made $750,000 on a $40 million budget. Yeah, this is one of the biggest box office failures since I don't fucking know.
He loves?
Huh?
Who he loves?
Possibly, but oh my god. And well, it's either 40 or 50 million, 50-50 shot. And this couldn't get off the, well, it did get off the ground, but it took 5 production companies in order to do it. Again, when I was in the theater, I wanted to do the Family Guy production logo joke or whatever. From Time Wasting Productions, from guys standing around with Hourglass Studios. And it's just so ridiculous and comical. This supposedly did have a budget, but it doesn't use its budget. It didn't even use it for advertising. This came out in like some weird ass film festival in 2016. I think it was like August, but it was technically nationally released in April of this past year. But by God.
Okay. Well, from one bad sci-fi movie to another, it's Alien Covenant. I know people love this movie. Well, I shouldn't say loved. It was met with
enjoyed.
It was met with mixed reception. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I didn't expect going in to hate it. I mean, especially since I didn't hate Prometheus like a lot of people did. But by the time I was done, I'm where a lot of people were with Prometheus. This is basically Ridley Scott's Phantom Menace. It's a prequel that understands nothing about what made the original so good, and also does a piss poor job of setting up the story of the original while leaving behind a bunch of gaping
plot holes,
logic gaps, continuity errors, and all this other shit. So, one of the coolest things that Prometheus introduced was this idea that humans in this universe are either subspecies or like artificial creations of this ancient alien race. The same ones that created the xenomorphs. And what it seemed like they were building up to at the end of Prometheus was that they were going to go find more answers. You know, why were we created? You know, was it a mistake or was it deliberate? How did we get to Earth? Was that part of the plan too? What were the xenomorphs created? Are they related somehow? Get ready for all those answers never, because we wiped out the entire alien race before we could ask them anything. The first half of this movie is basically a shittier version of the first Alien, which is one of my favorite movies ever, so naturally I'm going to be quite picky about it, but really, it's your standard horror movie fodder shit. There's no atmosphere, there's no interesting characters, it's all a bunch of gory gore with them making really stupid decisions that lead to them all dying, pretty much. It's not like the first one where you have smart people that deal with, a situation that just kind of falls into their lap. They don't go out of their way to fuck it up or get fucked, I guess, like they do in this movie.
Just fucking in some way.
Yeah. Then, in the second half of this movie, it decides to go all Blade Runner on us as we meet our android friend from Prometheus. I forget his name. I'd like to say...
Michael Fassbender?
Yeah, I'd like to say it was David, maybe? Or
I have not seen any of the Alien movies.
Okay, well... Anyways, he shows up again, and somewhere in between Prometheus and this movie, he's grown a contempt for humanity, I think. I mean, he says he wants to defy his creator and become more human. And his way of going about doing that is through breeding more xenomorphs. That doesn't make any sense. And you know what? Ridley Scott, I'm having a feeling, just kind of thought, I'm going to combine the elements of two of my best movies, but ends up not playing to the strengths of any of them. So, there's that. The midichlorians of this movie, because we gotta have those. His equivalent to that is, apparently, the xenomorphs had a superior version of themselves before they were ever really fucked with. Apparently, they could breed without eggs, without face huggers. Their essence, like this black smoke or like almost like a swarm of flies, but just like the essence of a xenomorph can float around, insert themselves into a person's body, and then that grows another xenomorph. Like, wow, that's pretty damn effective. Why did they apparently de-evolved when we introduced eggs, when we introduced face huggers, and that process, we added an extra step. Their idea was, we're going to perfect these organisms. No, you're not! You just made them worse! This is really stupid when you think about it, but of course, Ridley Scott wasn't thinking when he made this. God, it just pisses me off, because I'm not necessarily... Oh, okay. Ever since the first Alien movie, it's been hinted at these things were like a bioweapon that either were so effective, either something went horribly wrong, or they were just too effective that they ended up killing the alien race that created them. I felt like that there's a lot of lore and mystique in that kind of explanation, and it's really all we needed. But if you're going to go into more detail with it, you got to have it make sense. It's got to be smart, well thought out, but obviously it wasn't. He's just making this up as he goes along, no matter how much little sense it makes, and that's why it upsets me so much. The most amazing thing about this movie is the fact that it manages to be a worse Alien ripoff in the same year where the movie Life came out. And it's a part of the Alien franchise, so that's
Alien Covenant or Life?
Alien Covenant.
Okay. Well, Life just being the Alien ripoff.
Yeah, Life's an Alien ripoff, but this is a worse Alien ripoff.
Life is Alien ripoff with Ryan Reynolds. Ooh.
Pretty much. God, after watching this movie, I'm really glad Ridley Scott had very little involvement with the new Blade Runner. I really am. If you like this movie for, like, I don't know, the gore or just the thought, or just like seeing a xenomorph in action again, cool, but I've got more. I just have so much respect for this franchise that I hate to see it fucked up like this and
tarnished.
Yes, tarnished. It really bad with really bad prequels that make the universe make just less sense overall. I hate that. That's why it's my number 2. It almost would have been my number 1, but something else came along. Before we get to that, though, let's go over some dishonorable mentions.
Yes, and one of my dishonorable mentions is both Fast and Furious 8 and the new XXX movie. I think it was XXX Return of Xander Cage, but who cares? Because the new XXX was slightly forgettable. But Fast and Furious 8 just made me mad, mostly because, but you can just see it in the title, The Fate of the Furious. How much more can they stretch this goddamn franchise? It's almost unbelievable. The first movie about, they were car thieves, they were car enthusiasts, they were car racers, it centered around cars. But since Fast 5 supposedly put the characters in a new direction, now they're all just every other crime, like criminal thriller, like spy genre thing. Yeah. If you want more about it, just look at the honest trailer for Fate of the Furious, because there's a perfect line in there that says, "You guys are car thieves. When did you get involved in weapons espionage?" And there isn't that much cool stuff that happens in it. The Fast and Furious movies, at least the newer Fast and Furious movies, were known for having these, like, incredibly elaborate stunts, like flying cars out of buildings in Furious 7, or flying them from a goddamn plane. I think possibly in the second one, and them dragging a safe in the middle of like South America or something in Fast 5. But there was personality to at least every other one that was made before that. You could tell what Fast and Furious 1 looks like from the second one, or even, dare I say, the third one, which not that many people even like. But the personality of at least the first and second one are completely gone. Granted, for more centered characters, but it doesn't make sense what they're trying to do with them. The Ludacris, in the second Fast and Furious, he was just a ghetto, a cool ghetto car mechanic who was friends with Paul Walker, Brian, I think his name is. But, and big fucking shock, the baby that Vin Diesel has in the end of it. Oh, everybody, meet Brian. Go fuck yourself. Also, Vin Diesel's the only one taking this seriously because he knows he doesn't have much of a career after these movies, so these are his goddamn residual paychecks. And apparently The Rock even hated him during filming because he either complained or bitched too much about something. Although, The Rock, you're an amazing... Well, again, conflicted wrestling fan, but please, don't be a cash cow. You have talent. Use it for something other than this. Oh yeah, and Triple X, literally that and this have the exact same plot. The exact same. It's almost ridiculous, except it has Charlize Theron and dreads. Both good and bad. You need to keep going?
Yeah, just finish your whole thing, and then I'll go through mine.
All right, another one of my dishonorable mentions is, you all like this, but fuck you, I didn't. It was Split. I was very disappointed by it, and he actually liked it more than me. Mm-hmm. The reason I didn't like this was, the only Shyamalan movie I had seen up to this point was almost all of The Sixth Sense. I'd seen the ending of Unbreakable, but other than that, Shyamalan was just a director that I didn't find very fascinating. Apparently his return to form was him doing his exact same slow. Okay, his slow pacing. And even his dialogue is really weird and cheesy in this. What did save it was James McAvoy. He is still fantastic in this, just exhibiting everything, like every bit of acting talent that he has in his arsenal. But other than that, I just found it boring. And yeah, the girls in it are completely stupid.
No will to live.
No will at all. And not even the main protagonist. When she, again, honest trailers, one of the girls gets pulled away, and James McAvoy is eating her intestines, and the honest trailer guy is just saying, and run. And run. And run. And you're actually fully seeing him in view. Now run. Wow, you really don't deserve to live, do you? And another one of my dishonorable mentions is Smurfs: The Lost Village. It wasn't awful, but it was just dumb. It wasn't like really bad because the animation was still nice. The colors popped, and there was actually fluent and funny movement with the characters, which is a huge complaint against the live-action Smurf movies. But again, it was really stupid by trying to hammer in the everyone's a Smurfette message, and oh yeah, another big fucking shock, all made by all women. And that turns into my last dishonorable mention, Battle of the Sexes. Did you hear about this movie?
Sorta, kinda.
Well, it is based off of a real life event, the Battle of the Sexes tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs, and it was a monumental event. It was a monumental event. Say everything twice. Yeah. it was huge for the progression of women in professional sports, as well as just the women's movement in general. And I thought this could have been amazing with the amount of... And again, what I didn't even say before, I thought this was overrated, not really that bad. Overrated in the sense of it being... Like, it hammers in the dialogue of, oh, women aren't as good as men, women aren't as good as men. Did men really talk that way back then? Were they really that, like, outlandish, like, oh, you're not as good as us? Also, personally, during this past semester, I literally had a college class called The Psychology of Gender, which I didn't like that class personally, but it also, all it dealt with was women's struggles, and they have struggled for a long time, but you know what, nowadays they have gotten a lot of justice, and I guess they should continue to get justice because we like women. Mm-hmm. We like women. But by God, this was just over the top obvious. And Emma Stone, she was alright. Steve Carell as Bobby Riggs, he was alright. Not enough to win me over, though.
Alright. Well, the common theme surrounding my dishonorable mentions is that, well, you guys heard me say I didn't see that many bad movies this year, okay? And I meant it. The ones that are on my dishonorable mentions are not outright bad movies. I mostly just shrugged them off for the most part.
Or ones you just did not like.
Yeah, the common theme surrounding them is that I am just taken aback by the amount of praise they got, and I think there are prime examples of too much hype surrounding a movie to their detriment. One of which is the Lego Batman movie. Many people, when this came out, they didn't just say it was a great Batman spin-off, but one of, if not the best, Batman movies ever made. And I had to wonder if that was just a joke I wasn't in on. I mean, as a parody of Batman, it's alright. It gets a chuckle out of me here and there. But as a legitimate adaptation of Batman, it almost doesn't even deserve to exist.
Hell no.
Not in the same world where we've got Mask of Phantasm, Under the Red Hood, and The Dark Knight Returns.
But and you're still only talking about the animated movies. With people saying that, like, best Batman movie ever, they're still technically putting that up against stuff like The Dark Knight, Burton's Batman, then again, it is a lot better than Batman and Robin and Batman Forever.
The biggest thing for me is that it's so kid-friendly that it barely even resembles its source material. I mean, violence has simply no consequence in this universe, which severely limits how much I can enjoy it. Plus, there's a lot of really stupid design decisions they went with. Batman being overly egotistical, which was never really a part of his character before. The petty rivalry between him and Superman, also not really a thing before. And, Joker having to outsource villains because the amazing rogues gallery that Batman has is now too lame for him. And let's not forget, Zach Galifianakis is one of the most boring, most unintimidating Jokers I have ever seen. The most memorable thing about him was the homosexual relationship they were trying to set up between him and Batman.
I thought he was alright.
I didn't like him.
I thought he was passable, mostly just because I like Galifianakis in general. He might be one of my boys, although he has had a fair share of bad movies recently.
I'm mixed on him. He could be good or bad. It depends on the movie. But the next one is Wonder Woman, which you guys know I love. You guys know I love DC. So much so that I have even defended Suicide Squad in the past, which I don't have the same thoughts as I did initially for that movie.
I still like it. It's an innocent, simple watch.
I'm willing to say it's not as bad as everyone says it is. In Wonder Woman, on the other hand, everyone adored this movie. They said DC has finally found their footing. It makes all too much sense why people love this movie and why I don't. It's basically a Marvel movie in a DC skin. the majority of the movie, our main character is the butt of a joke. She's flopping around like a fish out of water, making me have more and more contempt for her that by the time she gets to kicking ass, it's too little too late. The comedy is more of the same. It's poorly written, it's ham-fisted into every situation, and in no way benefits from having any. And here it's even more jarring because it all takes place during World War I, in an attempt to give more significance to the events. Although I can't take any of it seriously when you have not Hitler developing chemical warfare WMDs. You know, I understand that in a comic book movie you shouldn't be expecting a historically accurate retelling of World War I.
Because it's fantasy.
But if you're going to be that asinine with it, you might as well be telling us in a fictional war. And it probably would have benefited from doing that as well. Overall, this was probably the most likely candidate to make my top 5, but the reason is that I'm just not as upset about it. Wonder Woman's not one of my all-time favorite characters. The most I know about her is from the Justice League cartoon. But I will say one thing about this movie. It did single-handedly ruin whatever interest I had in seeing the Justice League movie, because I know this was the direction they were going to take it in now. This copying Marvel thing. You know, so much for healthy competition. Maybe in a few years you'll get bought out by them.
Yeah, most likely would be the case. But you don't have... Okay, I was going to say, do you have any other dishonorables?
One more dishonorable mention. This one's a bomb. Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
I knew this had to come soon.
Yes. Now, it surprises me that this movie is as polarizing as it is because, you know, Force Awakens and Rogue One both got damn near universally praised, but
yeah, Rogue One was more shaky feedback than Force Awakens, but I still stand by. Initially I liked Rogue One better than Force Awakens because it had surprises.
I'm not of the variety that outright hates this movie, obviously, but that does not excuse the overwhelming amount of disappointment I got from watching this movie. It is a scatterbrained mess of interesting ideas that either they do nothing with, it's a bunch of scattered-brained, interesting ideas that they do nothing with, they do a little bit with, but not, or it's like so poorly executed that it doesn't work, or they wrap up and throw away before leaving any kind of impact on you.
I think it's mostly because the director, Rian Johnson, wanted to, try and have his own interpretation, known, instead of having it just be, another rendition.
I really... Oh, sorry.
But no, just something like J.J. Abrams did.
Okay, I shouldn't have to fight a movie so hard to get me to care about something that I want to care about, but I just can't. Especially when so many problems in this movie are so easily dealt with thanks to some out-of-left-field bullshit coincidence, or when the tone is completely shattered because someone had to shoehorn in a fucking joke. Yes, it's that problem once again. You can tell the fucknuts over at Marvel got their grubby little fingerprints all over this thing. Plus,
only because it's a Disney property.
It takes me so much out of the movie when you constantly have to try and recreate moments from the much better Star Wars movies. I mean, if it were me, I would say, no, don't do that. Try to create something different, but they can't. You know, this is an example of just simply preying on your nostalgia because it's easier than coming up with new ideas. And on top of all of that, we still don't have a decent set of characters to really give this movie any kind of drive. I mean, Finn is completely wasted potential once again.
I still like Finn.
Rey is such a fundamentally flawed character that I can't bring myself to like her.
I still really like her.
And to the people who keep comparing her to Nausicaa, fuck off. She doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as her. The villains of this movie, complete doofuses, or discount versions of other good villains. And their attempt at making Kylo Ren a tragic character, it was fucking painful. Alright, I'm done.
Now, we're on to our big cheeses. Our whatever else we can make an analogy to. Our worst of the year. And let me tell you, my number one is the Emoji Movie. Big shock. Everybody is deeming it the worst movie of the year. Honestly, I don't blame them. But it's a universally shown reason why everyone hates this. It's because so much money was thrown at this, but none of it makes sense. It's a marketing campaign that doesn't make sense. It's a movie that even thinks it's reaching out to a pop culture demographic, but it's not, and it doesn't make sense because if you base everything off pop culture shit in an animated movie, animated movies take time, so most of the humor, so most of the apps on the phone are outdated, i.e. Just Dance and Candy Crush, but also the slang is cringeworthy. Hashtag blessed, slay. This is the primal definition of pandering. And the reason that I had this at number 1 instead of Spark is because, well, both had a budget, but Spark did not have a gigantic animation or gigantic film company behind the realm. Sony Pictures Animation greenlighted, gave money to, and spent time on this awful idea and an awful script with awful execution from awful people. And this is possibly more infuriating also than Spark because it panders more. It's not just a simple story that's ripping off Toy Story, Inside Out, fucking Wreck-It Ralph, and the Lego Movie. There are so many things that this is ripping off from. Yeah, Spark only ripped off from like 2 or 3 different things. Ugh, the Emoji Movie is a clusterfuck gangbang rapage of any other popular animated movie that's come out in the past 10 or 15 years. But the fact that they actually got talented voice actors behind this. TJ Miller, I still have faith in you. Please do something funny. Make a stand-up special. Work with Netflix. Just get people to laugh with or at you again, whatever your goal is. And all the other people, they got their side jobs except for Anna Faris. Hope you're doing well after divorcing Chris. Hit me up. No. But jeez. The humor is non-existent. You can predict every single joke that takes place. All the logic that happens in this text world makes no sense. How can emojis reproduce when they don't even have any organs? How can they eat in Textopolis when they have food icons as emojis? How can they transfer back and forth between worlds but have a giant world in the middle but even though they're still boarded off by relatively walkable walls? How does anything in the story make any sense when they're transported to a different app from the Twitter bird when they could have just done that from the fucking beginning? How can we like this kid that we never ever see and we only cut back to the real world when we either want to cut to a lame joke about some kid's Spotify playlist coming up with bubble butt, bubble 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 butt, and having him take the most extreme measures possible in solving this problem that was caused by an unlikable protagonist who isn't even given that much personality aside from he's supposed to be meh, but he's more than meh. He's the all-in-one. And
I suppose that's one thing that Chimped has above.
You mean Spark?
Why do I keep wanting to say Chimp?
Because it's just space chimps.
Oh, okay.
Or Spark.
Was there any advertising in Spark at all?
No. There
Product placements.
No.
They didn't have something as fucking ridiculous as we're protected by the malware in the Dropbox.
And we gotta go to the cloud while also riding the waves of the streams of music in Spotify. And, oh yeah, we're also gonna find this human likable because he uses his crush's name as a password to his cloud. That's not creepy at all. Oh wait, he doesn't even say anything to the chick and relies on one face picture to say, oh yeah, you're cool. I like you. And the fucking girl is stupid enough to fall for it. But almost on top of it all, why would you make a movie about something you find on your goddamn phone? Ugh.
I thought you were going to throw it at my camera for a second, in which case I was about ready to beat the shit out of you.
Well, then we both would have had enough rage to go out on each other with. Well, who uses emojis to the level that this movie thinks that kids use? Kids aren't this stupid. Kids are not this gullible and only suckers for advertising. Yeah, we use our phones once in a while a little too much, but at least we know the art of human conversation. These people think that emojis are the dire things worth living for in the world. They are so important. They mean stuff. No, they fucking don't. They're faces of pictures of stuff you send to people when you're too lazy to type shit out. And the biggest tragedy of all is that they made Patrick Stewart poop. Patrick Stewart is poop.
That alone makes it worse than fucking. I almost said spaced again. Spark, not
Spaced chimped.
I either want to say spaced or chimped. I don't know why. Okay, but whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. We get it. I think everyone gets it. Even the fucking janitor who worked at Sony probably gets it. Emoji Movie sucked. That's why I deliberately avoided it with every ounce I could. I was not.
You would have strangled.
I would not. That probably would have been the first movie I would have walked out on.
You probably would have.
Yeah, but I didn't want to. I don't want to give money to a movie to support a movie like that. I'm willing to bet that movie probably made back its budget based on its reputation of being so awful, which is a damn shame considering how many great movies this year didn't make back enough money. But regardless, my number one is Kidnap. I know out of all of the controversies on my list and things and like bombs I dropped in my honorable mentions, dishonorable mentions, it's yeah, it might be boring to go with such an obvious choice, but it's obvious for a reason. This was the worst movie I saw this year.
The Halle Berry Scream Show.
I mean, you can make out what this movie is from the trailers. It's Taken if it was a Lifetime Network original movie with Halle Berry at the helm. Admittedly, Halle Berry is not a bad actress, even in this movie. You know, you have to admire her tenacity no matter what she's in. But you can't feel anything for her character at least, when she is given absolutely nothing to work with as she's chasing down what I assume are the offsprings of the wet bandits from Home Alone. Although, to be fair, that
would be a way more interesting movie.
Yeah. They picked the perfect place in the world to live because this is the most incompetent, incapable, moronic police force I have ever seen. They have apparently kidnapped 20 plus children in this general area, and they live close by so they could keep doing it. And they have never been caught, and they have never been found. The first hour of this movie is a single car chase. Now, that's not impossible to make engaging, but in this case, it's not. It just sort of devolves into a cycle with Halle Berry screaming, "Someone call the police," her chasing them down, driving up right next to them, and then they stick her son's head out at knife point, and she's like, "No, don't hurt him," and then she backs off for a little bit, and then the whole thing repeats itself. In between, there might be a monologue of Halle Berry freaking out, as any mother probably would. There's a standoff between her and the kidnappers. One of them decides, "I'm going to ride with you for a little bit," just to make sure she's good, until some arbitrary length of time where she decides, "Bored now," and tries to kill her. And then she stops by the police department, where I guess kidnappings are met with shoulder shrugs. And she also gives one of the funniest moments in the movie of her going, "No, my son!" She does the Home Alone face. Yes. It's funny.
Well, unintentionally funny.
It is unintentionally funny. Halle Berry in this movie is apparently some kind of super mom Terminator because she could take car accidents in this movie like a champ, which leads to one of the crowning moments of idiocy in this movie. One of the kidnappers, with his tiny-ass car, tries to crash into a truck, a big-ass truck, attempting to kill Halle Berry.
Semi or still just a pickup?
Well, it's like, I think it was like a food truck.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, big truck, little car, I'm gonna crash into it head on and attempt to kill Halle Berry because she's really that much of a threat to you. Well, whatever the case, he knocks himself out, Halle Berry gets knocked out, neither of them die from that because, well, car accidents don't kill people. What kills him is that Halle Berry grabs onto him and drags him through the woods for a little bit, and she crashes the car for like the 5th goddamn time in this movie. She lives, but he died from being dragged a few feet. The last 15 minutes of this movie, and yes, this is only an hour and 15-minute movie.
It was so short.
The last 15 minutes of this movie is basically a condensed version of Don't Breathe, where the other kidnapper shows how stupid she can be, which takes away of a lot of the badass feeling you're supposed to be they're supposed to be pushing with Halle Berry about how, she's the mom you don't want to fuck with, but she has no good opposition, so you don't feel any of it. But And also, another one of the really stupid moments of this movie, the very end, she kills a random third guy on the off chance that he might be in cahoots with the kidnappers, which, lucky for her, he is.
I actually saw that part, because I saw the Emoji Movie while he was watching that, and I saw that part, and he mentioned some information like, I didn't even ask that. And I think it was just Halle Berry in the studio shoot saying, why did you say that line early? And then, boom, boom, end. They just didn't decide to fix it.
Yeah. This almost could be a serviceably bad movie. Actually, you know what? It is a serviceably bad movie. You can watch it, you can laugh at its incompetence. I'd probably rather watch this over something like The Emoji Movie or any other bad comedy, Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, Trainwreck. But still, it is a bad, awful, stupid action drama. And that's why it's my #1 worst film of the year. And now, I know my list is not anywhere near as impressively terrible as yours, but you guys should know about me by now. I'm not a trash seeker, okay? I don't find much enjoyment in seeking out, wasting my time and my money watching something that never had any chance of being good in the first place. And like I said earlier, you really got to incentivize what you want to see more of, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you, me, or anyone says about a movie, good or bad. What matters is they got your money, and that's all the measure of success they need. Emoji Movie may have sucked big donkey dicks. I don't know how much it made at the box office, but if it's a success, well,
it was a success.
Then it's a success. So it doesn't matter. Blade Runner is an amazing movie, but it didn't make back its budget. It's a failure, and we're not going to get another one because of that. That's a damn shame for me, and that's why I feel so strongly about this, about not wasting my time and my money. Voting with your wallets, okay?
So what you're saying is, fuck Hollywood.
Yes and no. You guys do make good movies from time to time, but you make you make bad decisions too.
When you want money, it shows.
Yeah. So, there we go.
Finally got that out of our mouth.
We did.
Here's to better movies.
And here's to 2018.
Dude. And luckily, we're going to a party in a minute, so...
Yeah. We'll see you guys next year.
Later.
Come